back to ShelterTails. This is Connie Galley, and ShelterTails is here to promote adoption, disseminate information, and hopefully help raise funds for all of the hardworking nonprofit no-kill shelters out there. With me today are Sherry DeGenova and Laurel Cox of Kenway's Cause. Welcome, ladies.
Welcome, thank you.
Thank you for, and I forgot Moo. Moo is being so, oh yes, you. I forgot you. So when I first met you was in October, and we talked briefly about this. I was under the impression that Kenway's Cause, which is in the city of Hartford, was to make animals' lives that you would pick up a little more pleasant before their final days, before they got euthanized. And I honestly waited 6 months because I thought, I can't do that. I can't do that without wailing, weeping, and, you know, on TV. But the more we talked, and I think I called you, you don't do that. You're now, your new venture or your new mission is to get these dogs medical care, and you just formed a nonprofit to get the medical care so that they don't have to be put down, because the city of Hartford, as I understand it, doesn't have the funds, if you pick up a dog that's been hit by a car, to really take them in and get them medical help. That has to be done privately.
Yep.
So tell me how you started. I mean, you're an animal control officer.
Yep.
How many years you've been doing it?
I will be an animal control officer in the city of Hartford 16 years this May.
And you've seen, you told me you pick up about at least 30 dogs a month?
It varies, sometimes more than that. It depends upon the time of year. Summer, obviously, we pick up a lot more. Wintertime used to be our slow season, but it's been insane all year round. Yeah.
Why do you think it's changed? Why do you think the economy has to do with it?
The economy has a lot to do with it. People can't afford them anymore. People are moving. It's all various, situations. But it's been that way all along. I mean, I've been in the animal field over 30 years. Stationed in Hartford 16 of those years, and it's the same. It's just that it's becoming more and more public.
Okay. I think we talked also that you are starting to work with cats too, as well as dogs. And cats, they're like a flood, because I think people don't care as much about, they don't bond as much. Cats are more independent, and it is like the endless tide. And I don't know, do dogs on the street, do they tend to have puppies on the street where cats
Absolutely.
will have litter after litter after litter?
Yeah, they can have, absolutely. There's been many times I've gone to calls to abandoned buildings, under sheds, porches. A dog had given birth to a litter of puppies. It's common. I mean, not as common as cats because of the overpopulation that we have.
Right.
But just think, if we didn't pick up the dogs that we do, the overpopulation of dogs would be the same as it is with cats. And with Hartford, along with a lot of other cities in the state of Connecticut, they don't pick up cats. For the city itself, if it's a cat's injured or sick, yes, we'll pick it up and we put it down. So what my group wants to do, we want to get involved. We need to stop the overpopulation in the city of Hartford. We want to do trapping and release. My rescue group does we've taken in numerous moms, litters, the whole 9 yards, but it's just the tip of the iceberg.
How did Kenway's Cause get its name? Because you're not Kenway and you're not Kenway. Yeah. Was it from your first
In June of 2011, I was dispatched to a call for a sick animal. So I got to the location in Hartford, and it was a dog that was still alive, thrown on the side of the road in a black garbage bag.
Oh.
The dog was so emaciated, it had mange. I took him out of the garbage bag. I remember it was raining, it was cold. I blasted the heat in my van, I wrapped him in all these blankets, and I flew as quick as I could to the vet. We kept him alive for probably about 6 hours, and I ended up losing him due to the conditions that he was in. So I ended up naming him Kenway's, which means brave warrior.
Okay.
And that started our rescue group.
You're a special person, because I didn't think I was going to be able to talk onto, you're both special people, about it. I couldn't do what you do. I couldn't, that would wear me down. That would, to see how people mistreat animals.
It does, and it's, even to this day, I mean, 2011, it's been 4 years, I still talk about him, and it still
resonates with you, because, you don't understand how people can be so cruel. I understand people don't have money. I understand that, but to put an animal in a garbage bag and let them die that way, on the side of a road.
It's infuriating, which what I do for a living is what I was definitely put on this earth to do. I am the voice for the ones that can't speak. My passion, like I said, I've been in the animal field over 30 years. I have the same passion from day one. I still fight the fight. Don't get me wrong, there's days that I'm just like, I call on Laurel, I'm like, I can't do it anymore. I'm just
Worn,
mentally
drained.
worn, I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
And it's just, I think I make a difference. At least I try to make a difference, at
You
least
do
in
make
the
a
city of
difference, and
Hartford.
it's wonderful. It's wonderful because I always look at people and say, wouldn't it be wonderful to know what your cause in life is, what you're here for? I mean, that solves a bunch of issues, if you really know and you're passionate, you get very passionate about things, but if you're put here, it's like somebody who adopts 14 disabled children, and that's what they do. It's like, that's your calling. Isn't it wonderful
exactly.
that that's your calling? Because we need people like you. And we need people like you who, you want to tell us a little bit about Moo? I mean, she came to you not in good shape, and this dog is 10 years old and looks fantastic. Very engaged in life and
Yes.
friendly. And
She's very active.
yeah.
Moo is from the city of Hartford, and I got her it'll be 2 years in July. And she's actually an example of a dog that Kenway's cause would help. She was picked up off the streets in really, really bad condition. She had a condition called pyometra, which is a really, really dangerous infection of the uterus that can often be fatal.
Did she have, because she had cats or cats? She had cats?
That was a whole other problem.
That was
Yeah,
because she had a litter and it
yeah.
didn't maybe heal correctly?
Yeah, and it's commonly seen in overbred.
Overbred.
Females. Another reason to spay your animals.
Right.
So she was really sick. She had diabetes, she had skin infections, she was blind. And we got her healthy, and actually last May she had cataract surgery to restore her sight. And she's doing really great. But she's a dog that would sit in the pound, and she's as sweet as she is today. She was that sweet when she was the pound, despite everything and being in
She had
treatment.
gone through. It's amazing what you see in these animals,
And
especially
it's,
dogs and how calm
but
they are.
people, they meet her and, oh, she's sweet, but it's intimidating to take on a dog that's
So
got
ill.
medical
Right.
problems. So that's why knowing Kenway's is there. If you want this dog and you know that there's going to be medical needs above and beyond what you would normally be expecting, that's what we're here for. We want to get these dogs healthy, but that's just step one. We need to get them homes.
So, by the way, Moo and Laurel have bonded, so that's hers. So we're not trying to get Moo
Well,
adopted out.
she's available for adoption for $25,000. If anyone's
Boy, there's a
interested.
price on your head. There's a price on your head, lady. But so you're talking about when other people will come to look at the animals that you may have and say, well, I would like to help, but gee, I can't do that
Yeah.
financially. That's where you would step up. That's where you have that some call, where you have a board that helps fundraise and things like that, correct?
Yeah.
Basically, Kenway's cause, we are, any animal that I say I pick up as an officer that's hit by a car, has some unforeseen medical issue, the city of Hartford doesn't have funding to provide that animal with medical attention. Normally, in the past, before Kenway's cause, I'd have to euthanize that dog. I would pick up a 10-week-old puppy or a 3-month-old puppy with a broken leg or something major, I'd have to euthanize it. Now, I don't. Kenway's cause comes in, we take that dog immediately into our rescue group, we get it the medical attention that it needs, and then once it's healed and all better, then we start looking for a forever home for it.
So you actually would take, say you picked up a puppy or with that dog and had a broken leg, you would get it to a vet.
Yes.
You have a
We have
circle
a
of
s-
vets
yep,
that are
exactly.
very supportive of
Yep,
you. You can name them. You can name them if you like to give them.
Our biggest vet is for the orthopedic stuff and the major surgeries is a veterinarian specialist in West Hartford. They're phenomenal. I bring my own personal vets there. That's
Moo
who's
goes
vet.
there.
Another vet that we use is Compassionate Care Veterinarian Hospital on the Berlin Turnpike. They are phenomenal. They are, we don't use them as so much for the major medical, but spaying and neutering
Right,
and
right,
stuff like that, and vaccines. So they're incredible as well. We've used New England Vet, and then we use Ragged Mountain in Kensington. So we use a variety of different vets depending upon our need, but veterinarian specialist at West Hartford is our biggest. Yeah.
Now, where do you keep, which I talked about, well, you got animals in foster. If somebody, say, wanted to see a dog or a cat that you had, they would have to call and make an appointment and then go to the foster parents, or the foster parent would bring them to some place that
Yeah, usually one of the Kenway's members is there to do the whole introduction. A lot of our dogs, When they're originally picked up from the streets, people already know about them, so they kind of watch their story. You know, we'll advertise it. You know, I picked this dog up. It has a broken leg. It's having surgery. It's going into a foster home. So there's actually people that step up and say, hey, when the dog's all done, I'll foster it. So sometimes we already have foster homes lined up. Sometimes we have people that are already interested in adopting. So we get the surgery done, and the dog never even goes into foster, goes right into its forever
So you do
home.
that through Facebook, or you do that through
all through
your- all
Facebook?
through
Yeah.
Facebook?
We have a incredible network, with a bunch of supporters. I mean, our Facebook page, we have over 32,000 followers right now. So, and another thing that Kenways does, if you come into my shelter and say you adopt a dog, has heartworm, you live alone, you're on a fixed income, you know, you wanted to adopt a pet, so you have this unforeseen medical issue, you would reach out to us, and my rescue group will help cover the cost of that unforeseen medical issue.
Because I think that stops a lot of people.
It does.
And especially with
Absolutely.
an older animal who does need a nice home for those last few years, a comfortable home. So do you have a physical location?
We
or
do not.
Not yet.
No,
Not yet.
no.
Okay.
And that's in the
because
future.
In the future, well, you're very new. You've only been doing. You've
Exactly,
only been
yep.
incorporated as a nonprofit for about a year,
Yep.
right? So you were talking about how many hoarding situations do you run into? Because we just ran into this with a place I volunteer for with 19 some cats, and this dog really loves plastic. She's not a green dog. You're not a green doggy, are you, Lou? Huh? She's
Well,
so funny.
in my 16 years in Hartford, I've had probably 5 hoarding cases, most of them being cats. We're talking 20, 30. The biggest one I had was last summer. I stopped counting after 50. It's just,
And
you know.
were they healthy enough to try to get? Were they feral? You had to just.
They were
let
all
them-
feral. These were just cats that were just overbred. Oh, you know, they lived in their house, so they're all inbred, and they
Yeah,
would.
right.
It took me days to capture all of
all
these
of them.
cats. Yeah,
And,
it was.
and can you tell us what happened to them? Because just still
Some of them, you know, we evaluated them. The ones that were really sickly, we euthanized. Unfortunately, there was just so many of them, and then the rest were taken by various organizations, and you know, we placed out a couple. So.
So you various organizations, you can go to places that are specific cat organizations.
Oh yeah,
or
yeah. I mean, I
dog
reached out to every cat rescue there was in
In
the
a
state of
50-mile radius,
in the state
right?
of
You
Connecticut.
would
I mean,
have to with that
our
many.
companions took
Yeah.
some.
They're a
Connecticut
good
Humane
organization.
Society took some. Simon Foundation in Bloomfield took some. POA. So it's just all various different locations.
And it's good.
so.
I mean, it is a network, and you have to have that.
You know
network
what? And
because
that's what
nobody
it's
can do
about.
everything.
Exactly. We all have to work together, and it's tough when there's, you know, rescues and everybody has different guidelines
Right,
and different
right,
beliefs.
right.
But the bottom
Missions and-
line is we're all in it together.
Right,
we're
right.
all working together trying to accomplish the same thing, and that's the overpopulation.
So you've been in what got you interested in animal control? Like you said, you've been doing it for 30 years. It's a real specialty.
I was born into
Born
this.
into it.
Yeah. I mean, I
It's
remember
like-
little coming home and finding stray animals, and you know, of course, it
Trying
was
to
probably the
get 'em in.
neighbor's dog. But you know, my mom was like,
Neighbor's
"Oh,
dog
yeah,
again."
she found another one. But I mean, it's I grew up in Stratford, and I remember my first rescue was a big blackbird that broke its wing, and I built a cage in my backyard, and I nurtured it back to health, and it flew away when it was all better, and so it's always been in my blood. It's
You hear about that. I had somebody here that was with Howl, Howl, Help Our Wildlife, and the same thing. It seems like she was a child, would bring every little injured thing home, and now she's working with bats. She's
yeah.
working with raptors, you know, bats. She put a bat on, it was about this big, and I kind of got over my fear a little bit because in my head, you know, the one that came after me when I was 5 had wingspan this big. I know it didn't, but just, you know what I mean? So there are people that, like you say, they
Absolutely.
started
I mean,
as
I
children.
remember as a child, you know, always wanted to be in the animal field. And then as I got older, I didn't know what field I wanted to get into. And then it became a mission. I wanted to be an animal control officer in an inner city.
Yeah, and
'Cause I
it's
wanted to make a difference.
Amazing. How many kids really even know about that,
Yeah.
knowing that would be a career path? What
It's a tough one.
It's like I said, I couldn't do
Yeah,
it.
it's
I
tough.
could not do it.
I see a lot of heartache.
Yeah. And anytime, and we were talking about microchipping. You might want to talk about that because I'm sure there are people out there that are adopting now and they have their animals microchipped but don't know what they have to
Yes.
do after that.
Microchipping is so inexpensive. It's the state of the art way to identify your pet, because you can find a dog, take this off, and this dog's now unidentifiable.
Unidentifiable.
Yes,
Yes. And you only had water so far this morning. It's like-
So the microchip goes in under their skin, so they can't take it out. And most shelters have scanners, and it brings up a number, and we can locate the owner that quick, 24 hours a day. The biggest thing, people get these dogs, they get a microchip, they don't register them. If you're not internet smart, you can pick up the phone. It's a 1-800.
Like I think they did, I think they get these forms that goes, internet, I know.
A lot of rescues who, you get a dog. This is actually something we want to do in Kenways too with our dogs. Is we want to start microchipping them. This way, it'll be registered under us.
Right,
or God
right.
forbid
So
if
it
the
would
dog
at
gets-
least come back to
us,
you.
exactly.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of
People who
shelters do
buy
that.
in
Yeah.
pet stores and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. 99% of them are microchipped. They get the paperwork when they buy their dog, but they never do anything.
Never do anything
So
about it.
We get a
And
lot of
that's-
dogs in the shelter that come back from, all the way down south.
Really, really.
Yeah.
So, because I have, cats microchip. There's also a service called Amber Alert for Animals, and you could go in and put your. I don't know if you know about this. I used it. I had a feral cat. I told you I adopted a feral cat who did not want to live in my house, and it was small. It bolted. Well, I put this Amber Alert out, and with the microchip number and all that, and you'd be surprised the amount of calls I could never get her. I could never get her. So I'm hoping she's healthy and happy. That broke my heart, but she was
like one of the many that's out there on
yeah,
the
it's like for
internet.
cat. Yeah, and I didn't even know about it until I'm like, wait, I can't find this cat. She's little. I don't want her out in the snow and the cold. But again, people treat cats differently. But I did get a lot of calls. You, Laurel, have Moo, who had a lot of issues, but that is not your first dog. You told me, how many dogs have you adopted with issues over the years? You said no normal dog finds you, is what you said. No normal. So tell me about that.
I don't, I think what you were just talking about, when you know what you're meant to do. When I was little, I never played with dolls. I always played with my stuffed animals, and I always made them be hurt. Like I'd wrap their head with tissues, and I'd have to fix them. So I think it goes all the way back, because I've always felt for the underdog, no pun intended.
She did. Well, this one's sleeping. You
she's
got her up
sound
too
asleep,
early.
but- And my first dog was a very, very fearful, abused dog named Cassidy, and she had her front leg. She was shot in her front leg, and she had to have it amputated. And she was kind of my gateway to special needs, although she wasn't really special needs because she could run as fast as a greyhound. But
With 3 legs.
yeah, so I call them my tripods. I've had a few tripods, and the dog that I adopted from Sherry, which is how I met her, Harvey, he was blind and deaf and a senior. And then I've had dogs with cancer and kidney failure. The seniors, those are really where I
That's where you're
gravitate
focusing
to.
on, because you're giving them that quality of life for the
and
short
they,
period of time
Right. So
they
the
have left.
seniors tend to end up in shelters with medical issues.
Right,
And they
As
can
we
be
all,
hard
we're
to
all
find
going to
homes for.
get something
We
someday
are.
or
So,
other.
you know, and no dog deserves to be in a shelter, but the seniors really break my heart because they've
You
been
don't
loyal
think if you don't take them,
companions,
who
and now
will,
they're
that
dumped.
kind of thing.
Yeah. So, but all the dogs I've had they've just given so much back to me because they've gone through so much, and they're just still so loving and brave and
It's tough
courageous.
because somebody popped in here and talked about not ready. He asked about the dogs, somebody who works here, and then he said he likes animals, but he's not ready to lose something.
Yep.
And there was I don't want to make you cry, but there was a quote you had. You said, "Oh, I'm going to tear up." From what Winnie the Pooh
Winnie the
about
Pooh,
loving something.
Yes, how grateful I am to have loved something so much it makes saying goodbye so hard.
Yeah, and how do you do that over and over again? I mean, I have cats. They have
never
they're in
easier.
17, 18-year lifespan. I grieve very hard when they die. I can't imagine adopting senior animals and then losing them over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Except maybe in your head you're going, well, save that one.
Yeah.
Save that one.
Yeah, I think I've been through it 7 times in the last,
10 years. You said?
actually like
Less than that.
maybe 3 or 4. And people ask me, does it get easier? No.
No,
it
I can't
gets-
imagine.
It gets harder and harder. It's just, I don't know, you just, it's just something I have to do, and it breaks my heart every single time, but I'm just blessed to have had them in my life and been able to help them, and no matter if I had them for 4 years or 6 months, those were good times that they had
And
with
they were good
me.
times for them, too.
Yeah.
They were blessed
I
to
have
have
good
you.
memories, and they had a good life, and to think about what the alternative could have been.
Right.
That's just really what I have to focus on, because
Yeah.
you really can
What
wallow
have
in your
been.
grief if you want to.
Right,
but
right.
You got to pull yourself up and keep fighting the fight, because they need it. They need people.
You had both mentioned, and this, like I said, this dog, when you told us that she was 10 years old, it's like, this is incredible.
Yeah, I know.
She is a healthy, happy, interested, involved, nosy little girl.
Yes.
You know, nosy little girl. But she's a good girl. You had just talked recently about, we talked about naming animals and how hard when you have like 20 million animals
Right.
come through your shelter to get names for them. And you had 2 schools that were doing fundraisers with you and were very helpful. And now all these children are going to have a dog named after them, which I think is great, because it connects kids more closely with nature, I think. When you're out there, because one of the things I brought up a couple times, that you telling me that dog was shot and lost his legs just made me flinch, because when Howell was in here, the animal was shot. And it's like, who does this? And part of your job, I'm sure, is education, is saying to these children, this is just another nation. Don't treat them like animals, or like, you think animals aren't worth it. I mean, do you also put that message out when you go out to these places with kids? Like, this is...
Absolutely. I know when I'm working the streets of Hartford, kids, I talk to them all the time. I reach out to them. I hand out information stuff. We have to educate the young to make our next generation kinder.
Yeah, and I think it's a lot of...
And it's tough, and a lot of it is because these people, it's all how these children are raised, I mean, I was raised to be kind and
thoughtful.
Exactly,
right.
and respect. And today's generation, not so much. I mean, parents are divorced, parents incarcerated, in all different situations.
Your parents are trying to raise single-parent families, trying to raise kids, which they're not getting.
A lot of it is... the lifestyle, and we have to reach out, and we have to be kind, and it's tough because, I had a call one time where this child had a kitten. He couldn't keep it. His mother told him to get rid of it, so he put it in a mailbox. Oh. So and this was like the end of my shift. I had to get the
He may have thought, though, maybe somebody's he put it in a drop, open, so somebody heard
so
meow,
I had
meow,
to
meow.
get the federal police to come out.
Oh, my
and
God.
It was a young kid, probably he was just about 16. And
I
arrested him.
Yeah,
I'm like,
did he
you need
not
to learn.
Yeah, did you not think this through?
Exactly. So that's what it is. I mean, and it comes down to educating the children. I could have just walked away, but I mean, luckily for him, he basically got a slap on the wrist, community service, that kind of thing.
But it taught him something, that this
be
is
kind.
a life.
There's different organizations out there, and that's what it is. People have to take the effort.
Right.
But we definitely need to reach out to the kids. Recently, I had a kindergarten class from Simsbury come out, and they did a fundraiser at their school, and they raised over 100 blankets for the shelter dogs. They came down. I mean, that's young kids. We're looking at 5. That's where we need
That's
to
where
start.
you need to start. That's where you need to start. And I think most people, and maybe I'm a Pollyanna, but I think most people, or maybe it's just the people I met through this show, are wonderful with animals. They understand. Like the Ringling Circus is not using elephants anymore. That was that's a
huge.
step in the right direction, and that's an awareness. But I think that I'm trying to figure out who these people are and how warped they were to injure animals, and that's again where I guess I would be sad if I saw it, but I would have so much rage I wouldn't be able to. I'm Italian. I would have. So are you.
Yeah.
I
You
would
don't want to be in my
You
mind.
don't want to be in your head when that
exactly.
happens.
But what's messed up is that it's not just young people; it's older people. Like there was a gentleman I arrested. He was 80. The oldest guy I arrested for animal cruelty. He was 80 years old. Big, heavy-set guy. He starved his dog to death. I couldn't afford to feed it, and he tied it to his doghouse and out in the backyard and
starved. I mean, even if he had, and I'm not advocating this, let it go.
But
Somebody would have had
commercials on TV for the.
There's shelters that have food now.
absolutely,
Yeah. And I mean, that's a
there's
horrible
no
way to.
excuse
There's
for
a
it.
horrible way to
Yes.
die.
Yeah.
That's a horrible way to die. We had an incident with somebody who adopted cats and kittens from our shelter, and I'm sure you know about this but it was the court was in Enfield. Murdered, that's what you have to call it, 8 cats and kittens. And by the time the homeowner realized it wasn't cat fights that was happening, they took the last one to the vet, and the vet got them arrested because the vet said this kitten has been abused. Kitten died. They all died. And this guy got, maybe I'm quoting out of turn, but I think I heard 4 years, and that's just not enough for 8 murders. That's just not enough. And you know, somebody does something like that and tortures little tiny animals. What are they going to do to you when they get angry?
Yep.
Sometimes it escalates.
But it needs to go beyond being incarcerated too. These people are mentally ill, and we need them to be mandated to go to counseling and stuff like. There was a woman I arrested twice in the city of Hartford for hoarding, and finally the last time they mandated her to get
mental health help.
Yeah,
mental health help.
Because it is an illness.
Yeah.
It is. You know, we try to, you know, for years I was like, how can somebody do this to an animal? How can, you know, it's mental illness.
Do you, you know more than I do, but to me it's almost like, it's cruel. And do we think it's mental illness? Like this lady you had to arrest twice, or is it just not giving it a flying hoot? I would say, how do you walk that line? Is it you're just cruel and mean, or are you mentally ill?
There are people who are just
cruel and mean.
Yeah,
anger issues.
Yeah, anger issues.
But I guess you could call that a
There
mental.
was a woman I arrested, I think it's been 2 years ago, and she took a dog and hung it over a second floor railing. This dog survived. Her name is Karma. She's with a very good friend of mine. She lives the life of Riley. But I mean, it was a young woman who was just ticked off and angry. I think the dog, may have peed or something like that in the house.
That's what they do.
But you know, so
If you don't
is
get it
anger,
out in time.
does it go back to mental illness?
Yeah,
I think it all goes hand in hand.
Oh, you've seen enough over 30 years. One of the things that you think back on and you go, God, I don't wish I had gotten involved anymore. I get involved. You know, where I lived in a city in Philadelphia, and I had a neighbor who had a Doberman, and my daughter was 10 maybe, and we were pulling out, and he was whacking this Doberman with his fists. A beautiful female Doberman. And I looked and I went, I have to call somebody. My 10-year-old, because she hadn't developed the fear, this guy was, biker guy, said, hey, Walt, stop that. You're hurting that dog. And he said, you mind your business. She said, no, I'm going to tell on you.
Wow.
We didn't see him hitting the dog outside anymore. But, I didn't get involved then. Sometimes you know what your life thing is. After that period of time, I'm like, I'm not afraid. I'm not going to be afraid of Walter. I'm not going to be afraid. You got to worry about getting shot today. You live in a city. You got to worry about getting shot. That's the tough part of how do I step up.
Things anonymously.
Yeah.
I do a talk.
So how would they? You do a talk show?
I do a talk show
right.
Weekly on 105.9 with Renee Danino, and we talk about the importance of pet ownership and being the voice for the ones that can't speak. Our animals, just like our little kids, they need us to speak up for them.
Right.
If you see something, say something.
Yeah.
I tell people, you can call and leave me a message anonymously. Block your number. We don't have caller ID. Write a letter. I can't tell you how many times people actually write letters and send it to the police department.
Really?
And those for calls. Let us decipher whether it's a legit call or is it just somebody who just needs education. Sometimes people
don't know not to keep their dog out. Yeah, well, my father kept the dogs outside or whatever.
So sometimes it's just a little bit of educating. Sometimes we need enforcement. So
how carefully, I'm going to ask you this, do you have to approach people? Because I'm sure you're approaching people and saying, you're not treating that animal right, we're going to take it away or we're going to arrest you. How carefully do you have to, this comes back to, if they're angry enough to do that, how careful do you have to be? That's what stopped me from speaking up to Walt when he was whacking the dog.
Yeah, I've been in a lot of bad situations. There was probably one situation where I was physically threatened. And, I work with the police department, so I have a police radio. I requested help. I had, 5 or 6 police officers in milliseconds. Luckily, I've been out here long enough. People know that I'm not your typical animal control officer because I carry food in my van. Like if a lot of people lost their jobs.
Right. Yeah.
They know, call Officer Sherry because she'll, hook you up with some dog food or, a leash and a collar, that kind of stuff. So I have a really good reputation on the street. So people respect me.
So you developed a rapport. So when they see you coming, it's not like,
but there are that handful of people, and I don't walk in fear. I will walk into an abandoned building by myself and not think twice about it. I think, fear could be your worst enemy, so to speak. You have to be alert, but you also have to be very confident in what I do. So,
well, I have to tell you, my 10-year-old at the time taught me a lesson that I never forgot. And sometimes that's what you have to. You you flinch, you go, I should have been the one to step up. But
That's
as an
awesome.
adult, I know
10-year-old,
that if
yeah.
Walt's pounding on that dog, he could turn around and pound my face in because he's really a madman,
Yeah.
you know, that kind of thing. So I hustled her off, but she stood strong. No, somebody had to say something.
Good
so
for her.
good for her. And she was an animal person. She was an animal person all her life. So you might have some fundraisers coming up. Now this is going to air in April, so you want to talk about April
Yes.
forward with fundraisers that you might have for your organization.
Yes, and our fundraisers are very important because we constantly have to come up with ideas because if we can't bring in the money,
Yeah, you
animals are
can't
going
know
to
what you're
die,
gonna- right,
literally. So right now we have on Sunday, April 18th, a comedy show at Vito's by the Park in Hartford. And it's $25 and all the pizza and salad and soft drinks you want, and there will be
Vito's
a
has good
comedian
food too.
there,
Yes,
Oh,
they
yeah.
do. I've been there.
So we are going to be selling tickets for that. And our website, www.kenwayscause.org.
That's KENWAYS, no apostrophe?
Right.
Cause.org.
Yes, you can go on our event page. We also have a plant sale. A friend of ours has a greenhouse and a nursery in East Hartford, Bella's Country Market, and we're going to be selling $20 coupons, and $10 will come to Kenway's Cause, and they can go and pick out
Pick
their
out your
hanging
spring
plant
plants.
or whatever. That's going to be going on throughout the month of April and May, I believe. So, and things are in the pipeline, so I would encourage everybody to
So
go
you
to our
post it
events
on your
page if
Facebook
there's
all the
something, you
time?
know,
Yep,
it's
and on our website as well.
you're getting something back, and
Right.
you're saving,
And you're supporting,
helping
and
to
you're,
save a life.
you're helping.
Yeah.
What, so you have those two
Mm-hmm.
fundraisers. Do you need anything? You mentioned the blankets with these children. Do you need cat and dog food? What kind do you need? Sometimes people drop off donations, and
Yep.
where would they drop it off if they wanted? They could call or
Well,
go.
blankets we need for the City of Hartford Animal Shelter dogs.
Okay.
It's wintertime. We always need that. You know,
Okay.
come summer we don't so much use them because it's 80 degrees out
Right,
there. You need a
right,
blanket.
right.
Cookies. Chewies, stuff like that for the shelter dogs.
Okay.
As far as Kenways, what we basically need is we need financial support. So,
Okay, so a
our dogs
donation
that we
of some-
take in, we're talking $1,000
Yeah.
surgeries.
And our adoption fee, when
it's
we
so menial.
is $250. So, and the dogs
Which
we
is-
end up with cost hundreds,
Hundreds.
usually more. So we're not even close to breaking even through an adoption
But
fee.
that's not what it's about.
But it's
for
not
us.
about
It's
that.
saving
So-
that life. I know that
so-
that is very reasonable because I was up in New Hampshire at a shelter up in New Hampshire, and they had dogs, and they were $450 each. Because I go to
that's
all
the
the
going
shelters
price
when
for
I
most organizations.
yeah.
And our
And
dogs-
I thank you for joining us. Oh, in closing, if you have stories that you want to share with us, please go to ShelterTails CT, and Tails is TAILS @gmail.com. And we can talk about your animals on one of our future programs. Thank you for joining us.